왜 이렇게 번거롭게.
The movie opens on a lonely highway at night. A car glides through the darkness before slowing to a stop at a quiet gas station. The driver casually hands money to the attendant for fuel. Inside the trunk, faint thumping can be heard. The attendant pauses, listening. Without missing a beat, the driver turns up the music, drowning out the desperate sounds. Once the tank is full, the car pulls away and heads deep into a secluded forest. The mysterious man stops, grabs a shovel, and begins digging a grave. Inside the trunk, the bound woman shivers in terror. She frantically works to loosen the ropes around her wrists. As the man opens the trunk, she strikes him hard in the head and bursts out, running for her life. The killer immediately gives chase through the dark woods. The story then shifts to Mr. Han, who is joyfully celebrating with friends. He and his family have just moved into their new apartment. He steps aside to call his wife. "I'll be home late tonight," he tells her warmly. "Everyone knows about our new place, I have to treat them." He hangs up and rejoins the celebration. By the end of the night, Mr. Han is heavily drunk. He boards a bus home, mumbling incoherently to himself. Meanwhile, the terrified woman is still running for her life. She spots a large apartment complex in the distance, its lights glowing like a beacon of hope. Desperate, she sprints toward it, screaming for help as the killer closes in behind her. Mr. Han finally arrives home. He sees his wife and daughter already asleep. He grabs a bottle of beer, settles down, and continues drinking. Suddenly, a piercing scream cuts through the night that he rushes to the window and looks out. In horror, he watches a man dressed in black violently strike a woman in the head with a hammer. Shaken, Mr. Han fumbles for his phone to call the police. Just as he begins dialing, the lights in his apartment flick on. His wife has woken up to get coffee. Panicking, he rushes over and switches the lights off. His wife sighs, assuming he's just drunk again. "You always get rowdy when you drink," she says. Mr. Han crawls back to the window. The killer is still there, staring directly up at him. Their eyes lock. After a long, chilling moment, the killer turns away, then glances back and makes a clear warning gesture toward Mr. Han. He begins walking toward the apartment building. Heart pounding, Mr. Han grabs a baseball bat and locks the door. He stands frozen, listening. A noise startles him. Gathering his courage, he quietly opens the door and peeks outside. He finds an envelope on the floor. Just as he starts to close the door, a hand suddenly reaches in. It was only a nightmare. Mr. Han wakes up drenched in sweat, breathing heavily. The scene returns to the injured woman lying on the cold ground. She regains consciousness and weakly reaches for her phone. Her fingers tremble as she tries to dial the police. Before she can finish, the killer appears. He kicks the phone away, ending the call. She begs for mercy, but he shows none. He raises the hammer and strikes her repeatedly in a brutal, unrelenting assault until she lies motionless. The next morning, Mr. Han's wife wakes up and finds him staring out the window. Curious, she joins him and sees the area flooded with police officers. She wants to go down and look, but Mr. Han quickly stops her. On his way to work, he notices flyers on a bulletin board. As he reaches for one, a strange man bumps into him, snatches the paper, and startles him badly. The security guard calms Mr. Han down. "That's just Cola," he says. "A troublemaker who lives on the 4th floor." Meanwhile, Detective Jae-yob and his team arrive to investigate the crime scene. They begin questioning tenants. Mr. Han secretly listens from a distance, his eyes filled with fear as he scans his surroundings. Unbeknownst to him, someone is secretly taking photographs of him. Back at the station, the police review the case. They are puzzled. Why would the killer strike in such a populated apartment complex? The chief orders a thorough canvass of all tenants. Hundreds of people live here. Someone must have seen something. Detective Jae-yob replies grimly, "No one saw anything." The chief is stunned. Jae-yob instructs the team to question residents quietly and carefully. At work, Mr. Han cannot focus. The killer's cold, staring eyes haunt him every time he sees the news. He calls his wife, who is on her way to pick up their daughter from kindergarten. He panics when she's a little late. She reassures him and later sends a photo of herself with their daughter to calm his nerves. Detective Jae-yob continues door-to-door questioning. He overhears a young girl telling another officer, "I heard a scream around 2 a.m. I was going to check, but my mom turned off the light. Her mother quickly interrupts and pulls her away. That evening, Mr. Han returns home. He stands silently by the open window, staring into the night. He begins typing an anonymous report. I witnessed the killing that night from my home. Please understand, I cannot reveal my identity, but as he glances at the smiling photo of his wife and daughter, his resolve crumbles. He deletes the message. The next morning, Detective Jae-yob noticed faint tire tracks near the crime scene. Returning to the station, he informed the police chief that there were clear signs of a chase. According to a paperboy, he had seen a man running down the hill at around 2 a.m., the exact time the young girl heard the scream. That placed the initial attack at around 2 a.m. However, there was one problem. The emergency call center had received a silent call at 4 a.m. that ended without a single word. The chief suggested it might have been from someone else, but Jae-yob disagreed. According to the autopsy report, the fatal blow was delivered around 4 a.m., meaning the victim had survived for nearly 2 hours after the first attack. Meanwhile, as this investigation unfolded, Mr. Han sat at home watching the news, visibly shaken. His wife noticed and asked if he was okay. Before he could answer, the phone rang, twice, but no one spoke on the other end. Tension gripped Mr. Han. Then he realized their dog was missing. They searched late into the night, unaware that the killer was watching them from the shadows. The following morning, Detective Jae-yob continued his investigation by visiting the apartment building. CCTV footage had revealed that only 3 residents had been awake on the night of the murder, making them potential witnesses. His first stop was Mr. Han's apartment, where he was greeted by Mr. Han's wife. She recalled that her husband had returned home around 2 a.m., and while she was making coffee, she found him sitting alone in the living room. The moment she entered, he immediately switched off the lights. Curious, Jae-yob asked why. She smiled awkwardly before replying, whenever he's drunk, he's not really himself. Although the explanation sounded harmless, Jae-yob sensed something wasn't quite right. Leaving his contact card behind, he quietly walked away. While leaving from work, a motorcycle slowly approached Mr. Han from behind before coming to a stop beside him. Suddenly, someone reached out and grabbed his shoulder. Remaining calm, Jae-yob introduced himself and politely asked whether he had witnessed anything unusual that night. Mr. Han immediately became nervous. Fear was written all over his face because he sees the same motorcycle at the front. He repeatedly insisted he hadn't seen anyone. Sensing his hesitation, Jae-yob pulled out a photograph. Psychopaths often return to the scene of their crimes, he explained. Have you ever seen this man before? Before he could answer, Jae-yob's phone rang. The suspect in the photograph had finally been identified. His name is Pang Sang-tae, a 32-year-old man whom the victim had previously reported for stalking her. Without wasting another second, Detective Jae-yob rushed to join the operation. Elsewhere, Pang Sang-tae was already fleeing from the police. Desperate to escape, he jumped into a vehicle and attempted to speed away. But just as he accelerated, Detective Jae-yob slammed his own car directly into him. The violent collision left Pang Sang-tae badly injured, yet he refused to give up. Stumbling out of the wreckage, he continued running while Jae-yob chased him on foot. Then something completely unexpected happened. Pang Sang-tae's phone suddenly rang. The caller ID displayed the murdered woman's number. Frozen with fear, he slowly answered the call. Silence. Not a single word came from the other end. Before he could even turn around, a dark figure quietly appeared behind him. The real killer had been watching all along. Within seconds, the mysterious figure attacked, killing Pang Sang-tae before disappearing into the darkness once again. Later that day, news reports claimed Pang Sang-tae had taken his own life while trying to escape from the police. But Detective Jae-yob wasn't buying it. Why would a killer who murdered someone in an open space suddenly commit suicide, he asked. A colleague shrugged. Because he's a psycho. Back home, Mr. Han studied the photo of the alleged killer on his phone. He zoomed in on the eyes and compared them to what he remembered. It wasn't the same man. His doorbell rang. It was his neighbor. She showed him the same picture. This isn't him, she whispered. Mr. Han froze. She insisted she had seen the real killer that night, and that Mr. Han had witnessed it too. She begged him to go to the police with her. I'm scared to go alone. The killer is still out there. Mr. Han knew she was right, but fear gripped him. He pushed her away and forced her out of his apartment. Shaken, she stepped into the elevator. Just before the doors closed, a figure slipped in behind her. It was the killer. He didn't attack. When she reached her floor, she breathed a sigh of relief and stepped out. But as she approached her door, the killer rushed forward. Mr. Han, still troubled by what he had done, heard his neighbor's ringtone. He picked up her phone and went to check on her. The door was ajar. Peering inside, he saw the killer dragging her body and cleaning up blood. The phone rang again. Mr. Han quickly silenced it, but it was too late. The killer had seen him. A frantic chase began through the building. Mr. Han tried to call security, but the desk was empty. As he reached for a phone to call the police, he heard his daughter's voice. The killer stood nearby, holding his family at knife point, staring coldly into his eyes. With no choice, Mr. Han dropped the phone. The killer walked away. Terrified, Mr. Han grabbed his wife and daughter. Just then, Detective Jae-yob arrived and showed him the same picture. "Is this the man you saw?" The killer watched silently from the shadows. Overwhelmed by fear, Mr. Han shouted that he didn't know anything. Satisfied, the killer slipped away. At that moment, their missing dog returned home. Mr. Han realized the terrifying truth: this psychopath could enter his home anytime he wanted. The next morning, Mr. Han saw his neighbor's husband putting up missing person posters for his wife. He asked Mr. Han to call if he saw her, but knowing the truth, Mr. Han could only nod before walking away. Meanwhile, Detective Jae-yob refused to give up on the investigation, and not long after, a report came in that a black sedan had gone missing around 1 a.m. The police managed to trace the vehicle, eventually finding it completely burned, but the killer had made one crucial mistake: the GPS memory card had survived. After retrieving the data, the detectives traced it to a residential address where they quietly set up surveillance, watching the building from a distance. Before long, the killer arrived, cautiously looking in every direction before walking inside, but despite finally locating him, the detectives couldn't make a move because they still had no witness willing to identify him. The following day, while the killer was working at a construction site, Detective Jae-yob met Mr. Han at a restaurant and showed him a photograph of the suspect. "We found him," he said. "All we need now is a witness." He explained that the only people who could identify the killer were Mr. Han, his missing neighbor, and Jo Pil-gu. Realizing Jo Pil-gu was now in danger, Mr. Han rushed to find him before the police did. As soon as he found him, he urgently warned him that if any officer showed him a picture of the suspect and asked whether he was the killer, he should deny knowing him, because telling the truth would only get him killed. But before they could continue, Jo Pil-gu suddenly looked terrified and whispered, "He's here." Without warning, a man lunged at Mr. Han, throwing him to the ground. Moments later, Detective Jae-yob rushed over and immediately ordered his officer to let Mr. Han go. It had all been a misunderstanding. Relieved, Mr. Han slowly got back on his feet, but when Jae-yob held up the suspect's photograph once again, he froze and refused to say a word. Furious, Jae-yob grabbed him by the collar and shouted, "A woman was brutally murdered in an open space, and you witnessed it. Because you chose to stay silent, that killer is still walking free." The words hit Mr. Han hard, and for the first time, he completely broke down. Amid the confusion, someone suddenly realized that Jo Pil-gu had disappeared. Everyone immediately split up to search for him, and before long they found him lying in a construction site, covered in blood and barely alive. He was rushed to the hospital, and seeing the devastating consequences of his silence, Mr. Han finally made up his mind. He could no longer keep the truth to himself. He was finally ready to confess. His silence had only allowed the killer to claim more victims. Returning home, he confessed everything to his wife, telling her what he had witnessed on the night of the murder and admitting that fear for their family's safety was the reason he had kept quiet all this time. With nothing left to hide, he headed straight to the police station and gave his official witness statement. Armed with the testimony they had been waiting for, Detective Jae-yob and his team wasted no time, racing to the killer's hideout. They cautiously searched the house room by room until they finally spotted him standing calmly by the window, almost as if he had been expecting them. But something didn't feel right. In an instant, Jae-yob realized they had walked straight into a trap. The killer had hidden a can filled with explosives inside the oven, and before anyone could react, the entire house erupted in a massive explosion. Amid the chaos, flames engulfed the building, debris flew everywhere, and while the officers struggled to survive the blast, the killer quietly slipped out through a window and escaped once again. Back at the police station, Mr. Han watched as the officers returned with defeated expressions, and the moment he realized the killer had escaped once again, his worst fears came rushing back. Furious and terrified, he lashed out at Detective Jae-yob before storming out of the station. As he climbed into a taxi, he immediately called his wife, desperately warning her to lock every door and not let anyone inside. On the way home, he noticed a black-tinted car following them. At first he tried to ignore it, but the vehicle continued trailing them, making his panic grow with every passing second. Convinced something was wrong, Mr. Han suddenly grabbed the steering wheel, causing the taxi to swerve violently across the road. Just as he began to think he had overreacted, the black car accelerated and slammed directly into them. The driver stepped out, rushed toward the wreckage, dragged Mr. Han out of the taxi, and began choking him. Struggling to breathe, Mr. Han finally recognized his attacker. It was his neighbor's husband, who had been manipulated by the real killer into believing Mr. Han was responsible for his wife's disappearance. With the last bit of strength he had left, Mr. Han desperately told him the truth. Before the man could react, a gunshot suddenly echoed through the street. He was hit in the shoulder, and despite everything that had happened, Mr. Han instinctively raised his arms to protect him before breaking free and sprinting toward home, knowing his own family was now in terrible danger. At the very same moment, the doorbell rang at Mr. Han's apartment. Looking through the security camera, his wife saw a man claiming to be a police officer sent to protect them. He calmly showed his identification, and although she tried calling the station to confirm his identity, the call wouldn't connect. Believing he was telling the truth, she cautiously unlocked the door. Sitting outside was a nylon bag, and as the officer bent down to inspect it, he opened it only to discover the severed head of the family's missing dog. Before either of them could process the horrifying sight, the real killer suddenly emerged from hiding and smashed the officer in the head with a hammer, killing him instantly. Without hesitation, he turned his attention toward Mr. Han's wife. Realizing there was no time to escape, she rushed her daughter into a closet, locked the door, and ordered her not to come out no matter what happened. Then she threw her entire body against the door, desperately trying to keep the killer out, but despite her efforts, he forced his way inside and brutally struck her. Hearing her mother's cries, the frightened little girl ran out through the front door. The moment the killer turned to chase her, Mrs. Han grabbed the hammer and swung it with all her strength, striking him in the leg and slowing him down. She immediately grabbed her daughter, and together they fled down the staircase as the wounded killer continued chasing them. Floor after floor, he closed the distance until he finally cornered them. Just as he raised his weapon to finish them, the elevator doors suddenly opened and two men stepped out. Within seconds, more residents began gathering after hearing the commotion. Realizing too many people had seen him, the killer abandoned the attack and disappeared. Moments later, Mr. Han finally arrived, only to find his wife and daughter battered, terrified, and barely able to stand. Seeing them in that condition made him realize that as long as the killer remained alive, his family would never truly be safe. Determined to end the nightmare once and for all, he secretly followed the psycho into the wilderness, where the two finally came face to face. Without a word, a violent fight broke out as both men desperately struggled for survival. Despite the killer's brutal strength, the injury to his leg had slowed him down, giving Mr. Han the advantage. After an exhausting battle, he finally managed to overpower him, knocking him to the ground just as a powerful flash flood suddenly surged through the area, sweeping both men away. Some time later, Mr. Han regained consciousness and slowly pulled himself up. Looking around, he spotted the killer lying nearby, still alive but bleeding heavily from his injuries. Filled with anger and remembering everything the man had taken from him, he picked up a large stone, ready to end it once and for all. But after staring at the helpless killer for a moment, he simply couldn't bring himself to become a murderer. Instead, he lowered the stone, turned his back, and walked away, leaving the killer to succumb to his injuries. Not long afterward, Detective Jae-yub visited Mr. Han in the hospital and sincerely thanked him for finding the courage to finally come forward, admitting that without his testimony, the killer might never have been stopped. After everything they had been through, Mr. Han made the difficult decision to leave the apartment behind and start a new life elsewhere with his family. But before saying goodbye, he returned to the apartment complex one last time. Standing alone in the same place where the young woman had desperately cried out for help, he shouted at the top of his lungs, hoping that this time someone, anyone, would respond. Once again, only silence answered him. In that heartbreaking moment, the movie delivers its powerful message: sometimes the greatest danger isn't the evil committed by one person, but the silence of everyone who chooses to look away. And with that unforgettable scene, the movie comes to an end. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another thrilling movie recap.